As I reached out to place that final white rose on the mahogany coffin of my husband, Arthur, a harsh hand gripped my wrist, even amidst the heavy scent of lilies and the whispers in the church. I turned my head and met the icy gaze of my stepdaughter, Sarah. She looked into my eyes, and with a faint, chilling smirk on her lips, she whispered, "Elisa, stop. Please know your place. The front row is reserved only for family, for those who are truly mourning. You can wait at the back, next to the house staff and distant acquaintances." In that moment, it wasn't just my wrist that was squeezed, but my heart. Sarah's phrase, "only for family," dismissed my 15 years of marriage, the nights I cleaned Arthur's bed during his final 3-year battle with cancer, and the days I spent awake in hospital corridors, as if they were garbage. I was the woman who held his hand and wiped the sweat from his brow when Arthur took his last breath. But Sarah and her brother Mark, despite visiting their father only twice in the last 3 years, and those times were to ask for money for gambling debts or luxurious vacations, were considered the grieving family simply because of their biological bond. I, however, was a stranger who had dedicated her life to him. I sat in the farthest row of the church, on a wooden bench hidden behind a pillar, surrounded by people I didn't know, and bowed my head. Tears flowed, but beyond the grief, a cold anger was growing inside me, burning my stomach. These children were teenagers when Arthur and I married. I had embraced them as if they were my own, striving to make them feel the absence of their birth mother as little as possible. Memories flashed through my mind. I remembered the night Mark drove drunk and crashed into a store. I spent half of my teaching pension savings without a second thought to bail him out of the police station and keep the incident off his record. I recalled paying off the debts of Sarah's boutique, which she opened to become a fashion icon, but bankrupted in 6 months, and giving her the entire upper floor of my home for 2 years, rent-free, so she wouldn't fall into depression. I not only charged no rent, but I also kept her fridge full and washed her clothes. And now, as her father was being buried, they were pushing me around like a servant, treating my existence as a source of shame. When the funeral ended and we returned home, Arthur's and my home, our home, the scene was even appalling. Instead of mourning, Sarah and Mark were already sprawled in the living room, their feet resting on Arthur's favorite armchair, without even taking off their shoes. A bottle of their father's aged collectible whiskey was open on the coffee table. Their laughter echoed off the walls. The joy on their faces disappeared the moment they saw me at the door, replaced by that familiar, contemptuous expression. Mark, swirling the crystal glass in his hand, spoke in the tone of a boss addressing an incompetent employee. "Elisa, you must be tired, but you won't have time to rest. Lawyer Richardson is coming tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the will reading." He took a sip and continued, "You can stay in the guest room tonight until my father's will is read, but start packing your boxes now. You will need to vacate the house by the end of the month. We are selling the house and splitting the money. This place belongs to us now." "The guest room?" I asked. I was surprised at how calm, how controlled my voice sounded. "This is my home, Mark. I am the lady of this house." Sarah let out a shrill, mocking laugh. "Oh, Elisa, sweetie, haven't you understood yet? Dad is dead, and you are just his second wife, a caretaker of sorts. Blood is everything. That's how the law works. We are the heirs, and you are just a detail." I didn't sleep a wink that night. But this sleeplessness wasn't due to sadness. It was due to the adrenaline of crafting a battle plan. I went to Arthur's study, opened the locked drawer, and pulled out the thick red leather-bound ledger where I had meticulously noted every expense for years. Arthur hated financial matters and bills. Thus, he had left the entire financial management of the house and family to me. I pulled the calculator toward me. My hands trembled as I began pressing the keys. Mark's rehabilitation center bill, $18,000. Supplier debts I paid for Sarah's failed business, $45,000. The medical system and private nurses I installed so Arthur wouldn't have to go to a nursing home and could sleep peacefully at home during his final period, $60,000. The cost of Mark's wrecked car, Sarah's credit card statements. All of it had come from my personal savings, a small inheritance from my father, and my teaching retirement fund. Downstairs, while they celebrated their father's death like a lottery and got drunk, I was upstairs in that dimly lit attic room doing the mathematical breakdown of my own foolishness. Exactly $123,000. That was the price I paid for them to be family, a price that resulted in me being relegated to the back row at the funeral. When I closed the ledger, the pure, selfless woman inside me was dead. In her place, a cold-blooded woman sworn to reclaim what was hers was born. The next morning, precisely at 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. It was Mr. Richardson, Arthur's 50-year friend and our family lawyer. Sarah and Mark greeted the lawyer with the intoxication of victory on their faces and dollar signs in their eyes. They showed Mr. Richardson to a seat as if they owned the house. "Let's get this over with, Mr. Richardson," Sarah said impatiently, crossing her legs. "We want to start the sales process right away and meet with the real estate agent. Let's not waste any more time." Mr. Richardson looked at them for a long moment, over his thick-rimmed glasses, with an expression of pity. Then he turned to me and bowed slightly. He took a thick, sealed file from his briefcase. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said in a formal tone that cut the air in the room like a knife. 6 months before Mr. Arthur passed, with his mind perfectly lucid, he called me to his office and made a radical, irreversible change to his will. The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. The coffee cup in Mark's hand rattled against its saucer. "What change?" Mark snarled, his voice menacing. "My father was senile in his last days. He didn't know what he was doing. He was on medication." "No, Mark," I interjected. My voice was no longer trembling. It was steel. I looked into their eyes. "No, Mark. Your father's mind was clearer than you've seen it in the last 3 years. He was aware of everything." Lawyer Richardson opened the file and began to read. "My dear son Mark and daughter Sarah, I have given you every kind of financial and moral support throughout your lives. I covered your mistakes and paid your debts. However, during my illness, in my most difficult days, I realized that your love was only tied to my wallet. The only person who stayed by my side when I struggled to breathe, who helped me live with dignity, and who never let go of my hand was my wife, Elisa. For this reason," the lawyer took a deep breath. Sarah's face was white as chalk, and she was holding her breath. "For this reason, I leave this house, which is entirely my property, all my bank accounts, stocks, and life insurance, to my sole heir and life partner, Elisa." After a second of silence, Mark jumped to his feet. "This can't be. He left us nothing?" The lawyer raised his hand. "It's not over. To my children, to allow them to sustain their lives, I leave them the cancellation of all debts incurred on them, which Elisa has kept a meticulous, penny-by-penny record of. Your $123,000 debt to Elisa has been deducted from your inheritance share. You may not claim any other rights." The silence in the room was so intense that the howling wind outside sounded like a storm. "This is impossible. This is nonsense," Sarah screamed, slamming her fist on the table. Her nails scratched the polished wood. "We will sue you. You poisoned his old brain. You manipulated my father." I slowly stood up. I was no longer the woman with a bowed head sitting in the back row. I was the undisputed mistress of the house. "You can sue," I said calmly, the power in my voice nailing them to the spot. You can sue, but you will have to pay the lawyer fees out of your own pocket, because your luxury lives and free vacations, financed by my money, are now over. Mark tried to storm towards me, his eyes wild, but Mr. Richardson coolly stepped between us, his voice not raised. I wouldn't advise that, son. As the property owner, Ms. Elisa now has the authority to remove you from her premises. You wouldn't want her to call the police and file a trespassing complaint, would you? Your record is already extensive, Mark. I watched them as they left through the door. I didn't even allow them to gather their belongings. Send me your address, I'll ship them. Sarah was crying, her makeup running, and Mark was cursing and kicking his car tires. But those tears were not of regret, but of loss.